All right, this one is very similar to the one that we did in 5.3. We're just using the sign, sum, and difference identities this time. But I'm going to use a different method than I did the last time, just so that you can have a different method to use if you prefer, of finding the pieces that we're missing. So let me explain what I mean. I have sine of A, and then it tells me where my it tells me where I am so that I can figure out what quadrant that I'm supposed to be in, but I don't know what anything else is. I know cosine of B here, but I'm going to need cosine of A and sine of B. So instead of finding it the way I found it last time, which was to draw the angles and look at it that way and to like draw my reference triangles, instead this time I'm going to use an identity. I'm going to use my Pythagorean identity, sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. And I know, so right now I'm going to be finding cosine of A because I know what sine of A is 4/5. So I'm going to do 4/5 squared plus cosine, we'll just call it theta right now, squared theta. Oh no, we need to call it A. I'm sorry. Sometimes my brain doesn't work so good. Okay. Cosine of A equals 1. I can go ahead and square that, and I get 16/25 plus cosine squared A equals 1. Subtract 16/25 from both sides. So that means cosine squared A. Now you'd have to find a common denominator, which 1 is the same thing as 25/25. And 25 minus 16 would be 9/25. Take the square root of both sides, and I get cosine A equals 3/5. Now, the only thing I have to try to figure out is whether or not my cosine is supposed to be positive or negative. I'm going to erase all this so that I'll have room. I just needed to know what cosine of A was going to be. So let's go back and look at and see which quadrant we're in. So in this case, it says that A is between pi/2 and pi. So that puts me in quadrant 2. And all students take calculus, which means cosine is negative. Only sine is positive in that quadrant. All right, so we're going to use the same method for finding sine of angle B. So sine squared of B plus cosine squared, I'm going to go ahead and just write it down as -5/13 squared should equal 1. So sine squared B equals 1 minus 25/169. So 160. So I'm going to make this, I'm going to go ahead and write this out so that you can see it. That gives me sine squared of B equals 144/169. Take the square root of both sides, and you get 12/13. Now B is between pi and 3pi/2, which puts it in quadrant 3. All students take, so the only thing positive there, so this is also going to be negative. So I'm going to come over here and write it here. Sine of B is -12/13. And let me erase all this so we have room. All right, so now we can go back and use our sine sum identity. All right. So sine A cosine B plus cosine A sine B. So sine of A is 4/5. Cosine of B is -5/13. Plus cosine A is -3/5. And sine of B is -12/13. So that's -20/65 plus 36/65, which equals 16/65. That does not simplify because there's nothing that goes into both 16 and 65. So that is your answer. All right, so now let's do tangent. So I need to find tangent of A and tangent of B. So remember, tangent theta is the same thing as sine theta over cosine theta. So in this case, let's do tangent of A is going to be sine of A, which is 4/5, divided by cosine of A, which is -3/5. So we keep, switch, flip, those cancel, and tangent of A is -4/3. Just 30 minutes. And then let's do the same thing. So tangent of B is going to be sine of B, which is -12/13, divided by cosine of B. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this to multiply and flip this. Both are negative, so it's going to become positive 12/5. All right, so now I can go use my tangent sum identity. So tangent of A plus tangent B over 1 minus tan A tan B. So that's going to be -4/3 plus 12/5 over 1 minus -4/3 12/5. On top, we need a common denominator. That's the only thing that makes these a little tricky. So we'll call that 15, which means that's going to be -20. That's 15, that's going to be 36. And then, so I get on top 16 over 15. I'm going to go ahead and write this as 15 over 15 because these are going to be multiplied. Plus 48 over 15, which equals 16 over 15 over 63 over 15. And then I can write that out as 16 divided by 16 15ths divided by 63 15ths. Keep, switch, flip. Those would cancel, and I get 16 over 63. And that is that. And then the last thing is that they want to know what the quadrant of A plus B would be. So let's see. I know that sine of A plus B came out to be positive, and tangent of A plus B came out to be positive, which means if tangent is positive and sine is positive, that means cosine also has to be positive. And that means that it is quadrant 1.